set a course to immeasurable thrills, dear viewers. This time, Robert Gibson, XJ, and I, your loyal servants, shall dive into another tale of high adventure. We're once again enjoying the works of Robert E. Howard, Conan the Barbarian's legend named The Pool of the Black One. This is the 10th story in the Conan the Barbarian Chronicles, and it has a certain different value that other stories that we have reviewed so far didn't. But we'll get into that once we start discussing it. In this part of the saga, Conan joins a pirate crew on their voyage around the seas of Hyboria. Becoming part of their crew, our protagonist slowly earns their respect as the strongest, most daring buccaneer. This upsets the captain of the vessel, Zaporavo, who retreats further into his own thoughts and paranoia. Led by the mysterious Book of Skelos, the crew sails into uncharted territory, where they find a paradise-like island. As the party investigates said isle, Howard shows us a darker side of his hero this time around, as Conan plots and ultimately kills his charge, who, if we are honest, dear listeners, made the vital mistake of trusting our muscle-bound brute. To show that such actions should be punished by the universe itself, Conan and the remaining crew are besieged by strange inhabitants of the island. Long and lanky beasts, their hides and skin the color of obsidian, their powerful rituals able to turn the crewmen into statuettes. The story culminates with a desperate and well-described battle scene, where Conan and his men thwart these creatures and escape the island with their lives intact. Though the creatures are not defeated per se, merely kept at bay. Conan is chosen as the new captain, and the pirates continue their journey to parts unknown. Actually, there is a continuation of the story, but not written by Robert E. Howard. It's called Conan the Buccaneer, and it was a pastiche by the camp. I haven't read it, but I've heard mostly bad things about it, so I'm sure it is the way that it is. But there's a reason why I'm mentioning the camp. We have previously reviewed the City of Skulls, and one of the things we said about it was that Conan seemed a little bit out of character. He was much more brutish, much more sexualized. And then we revisit. Well, at least for me, it's a revisit. I've never. I've read the Pool of the Black One before. If I didn't know any better, if let's say I've never read it and Robert gave it to me and said, "Hey, look at this pastiche of Conan," I'd be like, "Oh yeah, they really didn't get him right in some of these aspects, but it's still really well written." I might have not believed that this was actually Howard's work when it came to characterization of Conan. Perhaps not the prose itself, because it is really well structured, just like any of his tales. But I think this is one of the things that I really want to discuss with all of you tonight, and that is the characterization of Conan, as we've seen him before, and what this tale does. I have some answers as to why this tale is written this way, but I first want to hear what our other experts have to say regarding it. Yeah, actually, what did you think about the Pool of the Black One as a tale?
Uh, I thought it was so poorly written that I at first thought it was a trick that you guys put on me again. That it was by Decamp and somebody else. It was a pastiche. That I actually went to check out who it was really written by, and apparently it really was Howard himself. And I even thought it was maybe the very first story he wrote. But then no, that was the Tower of the Elephant. We did that already. So I was really. I mean, I have no clues as to the backstory for how this short story was written, but it was just very very below his normal levels of excellence. I was very taken aback, very taken aback. I disappointed even actually. So why I feel so? Well, first of all, we never really found out why the freebooter captain, I think his name is Zingarian or something like that,
Zaporavo.
Zaporava. Why Zaporava wanted to go to the island? There was some mention
Yeah,
of
what is
the
this Book of Skelos, right? Like,
Skelos.
what is
It
what's
was
giving? Uh-huh.
never really expanded upon. And then there's this mysterious race of man. I don't even know if I should continue because first of all, this is written in 1933, if I'm not mistaken. We're talking, so you have a bunch of tall black men carrying off white people. I mean, just imagine the look. I was like, I was like, normally this isn't something that I care about all that much, but man,
I mean, if you want to read it like that, you definitely can. They're not really
okay,
described as human beings.
so yes, but here's the thing, right? So one of the reasons why I thought this was so poorly written was because at the second part of the story, you start seeing so many repetitive stuff. And I'm talking about actual, like, I'll read you a sample sentence, and this is peppered throughout the last bit. The eyes were tawny, a vibrant gold that glowed and glittered, but the face was inhuman. Each line, each feature was stamped with evil, evil transcending the mere evil of human. I'm sorry, can't you find a different words so you don't repeat the word evil 3 times in the same sentence?
Yeah, but they're evil, man.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only one that I was just lifting out an example that I could find like in the 30 seconds before we started the podcast. And the funny thing is, there was a point in time where I feel as if Howard realized what he was doing, and then he was like, he had Conan stare at these people, and then instinctively he knew that these were not humans, so he gave him an out. And then as he further went on, he ran out of words to describe the black ones and started calling them tall giant blacks, the blacks, and then the blacks. Once in a while, he sprinkled ebony. Never used the word obsidian, by the way.
Yeah, that's my invention. So, Mr. Howard, pay up.
No, that was Robert's use, I believe. No, anyway,
No, it was me.
okay, fair enough. So I was like, man, bro, you really tripped up on this. You really tripped up
It's
on
like a
this.
buddy. You're watching American football together. Bro, what are you doing?
Bro, what are
He's
you
like, trust
doing?
me.
Exactly. It's like I was like, oh my god, this is so bad. It read like a first draft. It read like a first draft, and I was quite disappointed actually. Yeah, that was my take.
All right. And Robert, what did you think about the Pool of the Black?
It's as though we were XJ and I were reading different stories. It might have been an explanation, or we're living in different dimensions. XJ was taken aback by how badly written the story was. It was the opposite with me. I was taken forward by how written it was. In fact, although all the Conan stories are written to a high standard, I thought this one was actually in the top percentile. Now, it's strange that I should say this because previously it wasn't one of my favorite Conan stories. In fact, it was quite a revelation to me how much I appreciated it this time. Probably read it 2 or 3 times before, but this time was different. I think that maybe the XJ gets annoyed with words repeated in sentences whenever it happens. I think sometimes a writer can get away with that, and that's just a minor issue. I also think that in the fantasy genre, you can get away with an awful lot of unexplained stuff, and this story is a case in point. We're not told really, or hardly at all, why Zaporavo wants to get to these isles, or how he learnt from this Book of Skelos that they were worth reaching. I mean, there's just a very sparse clue or two. But more than that, when we actually get there, these black giants, probably not human, seem to not have any background to them. They don't have any cultural background. They're just there to perform evil deeds and do their mysterious things with the pool, which causes bodies to shrink. And I don't mind this at all. I think that it's fair enough if you're a pirate wanting to find loot and so on and preserve your own skin in the process. You don't stick around to investigate the whys and wherefores of the various magical goings on in this world. You just try and grab what you can, and if you can't, then you try and get out alive. And the story is, after all, written not from an omnipotent point of view, but from the point of view of the pirates, from the point of view of Conan, especially, to some extent Zaporavo, and to some extent the girl. And we're not hovering above the whole thing with a sort of omnipotent view of the causes of everything. So I don't think it matters that we don't understand what's going on. In fact, I think it adds to the effect. And there's a sort of dreamlike quality, anyway, to this island with the pool of the Black One. It contains a remarkable few sentences here when the girl is somewhat unwisely strolling around the place. She was
Naked, that must add. Her name is Sancha, by the way.
Yeah, she was entranced by the green vistas that unfolded gently before her, soft slope beyond slope, carpeted with green sward and dotted with groves. Between the slopes lay gentle declivities, likewise swarded. The scenery seemed to melt into itself, or each scene into the other. The view was singular, at once broad and restricted. Over all, a dreamy silence lay like an enchantment. That's remarkable description, even by Howard's standards, and I don't think there's anything like it elsewhere in his oeuvre. It's as though he had some sort of inspiration, especially for that paragraph and for the vision of this island. So, in to sum up, I think the story is one of the best written of the stories. I think also, I haven't gone into this, but is very good for the power dynamics between Conan and Captain Zaporavo, and how Conan gradually gets into a position where he can oust the captain, but he mustn't do it too obviously. That's gone into quite well as well. And the fact that it deals with a part of the world which none of the other Conan stories even mention, I don't think, also leaves the author free for a bit of pure invention, not related to the rest of the Hyborian kingdoms. All in all, I think it's a very successful story, although it took me most of a lifetime to achieve this high opinion of it.
I also like the story. So while I am in jokes with XJ, I think some of the points he makes are rather both hilarious and they, I hear some truth in them. They don't affect my actual opinion of the story. Yeah, some words are repeated. Yes, the plot is in some places paper thin, right? My problems come from a different perspective. I have problems with the story, but it's not from the angle which XJ is coming in. First, the things that I really like. I think Conan's transition when he becomes his character again in the second part of the story, where he gets the Sancha to arouse the crew, and he gets to fight the Black Ones and destroy these giants, and get his crew together and sort of say like, oh, this is what it's all about. It's about life, right? We survived. This is awesome, right? So that was really exciting for me. I also think the very beginning of the tale is interesting, and I thought the setup of Conan going in there with the captain, and then Sancho finding the captain dead was interesting. But then the answer was ludicrous to me. The answer that no, actually Conan did want to kill him, that it was a cold-blooded murder, basically. I found that really strange. I found it so strange, in fact, because this is how you know something just didn't make any sense to you. The first time I read the story when I was a kid, I came up with a different point. It was not Conan who killed him. In my mind, throughout all these years, um, I have blocked the memory that this was actually written, and in fact, I've had it that the the pirate was already killed by one of the alien creatures, and Conan came up upon it and started following it. So it was so baffling to me, even as a kid, that Conan could do this, that I blocked it out of my memory, that I couldn't believe that it was. In fact, to me, it kind of seems like maybe how Howard wanted to create some sort of a mystery there, because otherwise, why would he describe it in such a strange way, where the you know the scantily clad Sancha finds the captain dead before we find out what happened in the scene, right? Unless he wanted to put a mystery in there, why structure it that way? I'm not sure. I'm not, I'm never gonna be able to find out, right? We'll never be able to speak with Robert E. Howard. It's just really strange to me, and it's so out of character that it belongs in something like a pastiche by the camp. That and um and the depiction of the heroine, the way she's described, her actions, how forgetful she is, um, the she turns into
Do
a
you
proper
mean
Howard.
do you mean forgettable or forgetful?
No, she herself.
As in
Oh
she
yeah,
has
yeah,
put.
forgettable. Yeah, forgettable. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Forgetful is something that happened. For example, me, I was forgetful about the meaning of the word forgetful. So yeah, yeah, she's really forgettable until the end. In the end, she does something for the story, right? She rouses the pirates, but it's based on Conan's orders, and she doesn't really seem to have any interesting points of view. And well, there's a reason for it. It's not a very grandiose reason. Robert figured out, not Robert Gibson, Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard figured out, as well as his editor, that the best way to get into weird tales was to have a really scantily clad heroine in your story, or even one described as naked. So there you go. That's just how Sancha is existed. It's in his letters. It's in his correspondence with the editor. So that's why she exists in the way she is. That's and that's neither here nor there. Robert E. Howard was very poor, so I understand that he was trying to make as much money as possible and get his stories in the making. Maybe that's where some of the criticisms that XG has levied against him in this tale, although I don't personally mind them, maybe that's also where they come from, because this was written quite fast, in between tales, basically. And in my eyes, I like the story, but I think it could have been way better. I like the descriptions because I agree with Robert. Some of the descriptions in this tale are some of the best, especially the transformation of that youthful pirate, the transformation into the puppet. Um, the way he describes it, although he uses a lot of language that is non-specific, how he does it and the way he puts it, I could imagine this terrible, you know, how would I put it? Mm, destruction of the human spirit that happens on screen because of what these creatures do to him, right? So it's really cool. I really enjoyed it from those perspectives, and I also actually, to me, I like the fact that it is nondescript in some areas. I can make fun of it, right? It is kind of like, oh, I'm going to this island because shut up. That's why I'm going there, right? Okay, fine. But that, at least when I was a child, that invited me to think like, oh my god. So what is the mystery? What's inside of what are these things have there that our heroes didn't even find, but the pirate captain really wanted? What else is written in the Book of Skelos? And so on and so forth, right?
Mm.
It gave me inspiration. Whereas a lot of other books, a lot of other short stories, when they had those kind of elements, they didn't really give me that. And I struggle to say why Howard's work has that power. I don't know. Maybe you guys could help me figure that out. Why in most books when we get something like that, we just kind of go like, oh, okay, well, anyway, we'll skip that because there doesn't seem to be any proper motivation established. But in some works, at least
Mm.
for me, for Howard's, it spawns imagination. It spawns desire to know.
Mm. Yeah, that's the important question that about writing, isn't it? That it's not so much good. A great writer is different from an average writer. Not that he gets lots of things right, but that he enlists the reader's participation in a way that a mediocre writer does not. So the great writer can afford to make what would be in errors of judgment in a lesser writer, but being a great writer, he knows that it's a sort of duet between him and the reader can fill in some of the gaps. The reader is motivated to fill in some of the gaps. That's what I think.
Actually, is there a work which has created this feeling in you?
I can't think of one offhand. Oh wait, um, it's in a completely different genre though.
That's not a problem. I
It's
think it's just the evocativeness.
science fiction's set of stories by Stephen Baxter, but it's a very very different thing. It's the what he does is he extrapolates some of the existing theories of physics and really push it to the edge of the imagination, and that makes it really it really set my imagination wild, thinking what else could be out there. In a small way, Arthur C. Clarke's Rama, the very first one, did the same thing. Yeah. Fantasy stories, not so much, to be honest. Maybe if I have to push for it, um, The Magician by Raymond E. Feist had a section where Pug the Magician was transported to Calawan. And during those two books, Calawan was painted in a mysterious enough way that made me want to find out more, which he very obligingly did with Jenny Words. So that the Empire was very nice, much better than Magician, if I have to if I have to say, yeah. Aside from that, I would say less in fantasy and more in science fiction for me.
I think you're a rationalist at heart, XJ.
I am absolutely a rationalist. No, there is very little romanticism in me. Yeah.
Well, I'm not.
I mean, yeah.
I'm not rationalist.
No, neither am I. But it's good to have different points of
Take
view.
your thoughts. Yeah.
Exactly. So, if you you didn't really like the story actually, but did you have a moment where you did enjoy it? And if it was, what?
Um, Unfortunately, the flaws in the story were just too great for me to properly sit down and enjoy it. Like, so here's a few things. Um, normally, so the lack of expansion with the Skelos thing, and then the reason behind why Zaporova wanted to actually go to the island and all that, I felt became a really big weakness in the story, because how do I put this? So I have said before, like, the most important thing for me in reading a story, first the world building, and then the way it is written, like the prose, the construction, the craftsmanship of the prose, and then the characters after that. So for this particular story, it failed the first one. There was very little world building, except for the very beginning, where we were exploring a little bit of the differences between the freebooters and the barachans. And after that, the so when they actually got onto the island, there was no world building. Then second, the construction of the prose is just not just disappointing. So it was really nothing for me to latch on to. And I have to say, the second part of the story really suffered from the lack of expansion on the mystery, because if he had given some background to the Book of Skelos, why Zaporova wanted to go to the island, then we might have given an identity to the giants, the tall black giants, as to who they are, what they are, and then he wouldn't have the problem of only having tall black ebony giants, or a variation thereof, to describe them, and it won't be filled with the blacks, the giant blacks, black men, tall black giants. It's like, yeah, no, the story just didn't work for me.
I actually agree with this point that more would be well rewarded there for both the author and the reader, having more background on the island and so on and so forth, and the motivations thereof. However, I think it would stop having this really adventurous, bizarro type feel. Let me tell you something. This story is probably the most, and you may laugh at me, but this is the most realistic fantasy that I've ever read, and I'll explain to you why. I've been among not 10 scenarios, not 50, hundreds of scenarios which looked exactly like this. D&D sessions. Players go through a situation. They don't learn anything about what's going on or why it's happening. And they're like, whatever, we're just gonna keep going. And there's the quest giver, Zaporavo, right? He's like, oh, there's this dark and broody secret I have, and I'm gonna go into my into my cabin, and I'm gonna read this book of Skelos. Player's like, I don't care. Can we just skip to where we get to the island? All right, you're at the island. Zaporavo is going into the woods. Okay, we follow him. All right, what do you want to do with him? We kill him. Why? Because we can have his ship. Okay, that makes sense. And then you, as the dungeon master, you're like, I gotta punish them in some way. They just killed an innocent dude. All right, let's put these weird obsidian giants into the equation and have the tall black creatures destroy them. And so they fight them, realize that they can't win, and then they run away on the ship. There you go. That's the end of your TNT adventure. It fits so perfectly. It's to the point where I could believe that, like, people in real life would be like, "Oh, I don't want to pay attention to any of this. Like, oh, I just need my next paycheck. I'm just gonna relax on this ship until okay, we get to the island. Oh, the captain wandered off alone. Man, I could be the captain. All right, let me go. Strikes the captain down. Then
Hmm.
some weird stuff happens. The stuff that he is not prepared at all for, because he wasn't paying attention to that. He was paying attention to the half-naked woman running around on the ship, and his own ambitions. So neither him nor the viewer is at all prepared as what's still going to be on the island. If for anything else, I find it quite realistic, just based on the fact that I've been in these situations so many times. It must be that humans really do this type of stuff.
Hmm. Yes, and as for Conan's killing of the captain, I think in mitigation one could point out that there's a tradition among these pirates, where if you get strong enough, you're allowed to challenge the captain to single combat after certain conditions have been fulfilled. And Conan thinks that uh, he's got just as much right being a pirate to take the place of another pirate. Uh, it's not so much a murder of an innocent as a duel in that particular culture.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
reason
but he specifically, hold on, Robert. He specifically says people won't accept me if I challenge him one to one, as per rights of
exactly
of the pirate. So
exactly
that means he is
exactly
going against law.
it's well the thing is that he isn't in a position to do so openly, but he doesn't see any moral objection to doing so secretly. After all, a killing is a killing. It's not as though Zaporavo is going to be any great loss to humanity. So I'm just saying that in partial mitigation. But I think you could write a very interesting PhD thesis on the theme of Conan and personal loyalty, because there are a lot of contradictions you could probably refer to in the stories to eke out your thesis and make it a long one.
Well, yes, it's also very human to keep
Mm,
switching your morals and allegiances and your moral compass. It's very human
mm,
to change your stances and things almost exponentially. In fact, I don't think I know very many people who, over the years of me knowing them, have changed their views or have, you know, not changed
mm,
maybe, but at least skewed a situation into their favor, even though they
mm.
were betraying their morals that they kept talking about. So,
And yeah, and Conan does mature in the stories. He does develop a feeling of
mhm.
sort of responsibility, which he doesn't have in the early stories.
I
I suppose partly because he ends up being a king, and of course, when you're a king, you've got to have a certain amount of public spirit because the kingdom is yours anyway. That's a slightly cynical way of looking at it, but I think he does
mm.
grow up.
I mean, all right. I'm gonna maybe say something controversial for you, Robert. I don't know if XJ will find it as controversial, but to me, this is, although I enjoyed both this and Rogues in the House, both of these stories I would call paycheck Conan. Right? To me, it is something that was written in order to continue the existence of a writer, right, of an author,
Mm,
in those
mm,
trying times. And so I don't think there was as much thought or as much, you know, um, thematical thinking that was put into this than, let's say, the Tower of the Elephant or the God in the Ball or Beyond the Black River, where like those stories they have a lot of interesting things in them
mm.
that
Yeah,
isn't just about the main story,
yeah,
right?
more
Whereas
profound.
yeah, here it's a day in the life of Conan, you know.
Yeah. But there is this dreamlike depiction of the island, and I think that was all right. Howard was writing a potboiler, maybe, but he was inspired, I think, when it came to describing that island.
yeah. This is the one thing that I very much disagree with the XJ. Like, I think the prose was fantastic. I think the prose was very well written, uh,
I
even though it
mean,
suffered in some places.
I actually thought a lot of the prose were overwrought in some places, like made,
Overwritten.
yeah, made,
Yeah.
made pretty for the sake of making pretty, which is not my kind of thing at all. And then it yeah, is very inconsistent because you have some places like the description of the sword that Robert brought up, and then you have the repetitive words. I just thought of another one. With a tigerish bound, Conan jumped in with the ferocity of a tiger. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, it's like it's very strange, man. It's like I said, it really felt like a first draft.
Right. Can I ask you people then, what do you think about some? I think it's very good. This extraordinary bit at the end with the pursuing river. I don't think I've ever read about a pursuing river in any other kind of literature, but the water actually pursues the fugitives. I think that was great. That's some nightmare, but very good.
I read it as like the force of the water made them run, and it was just behind them all the time. Was the green water actively seeking them out?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
That's how I
Yeah,
read
the
it.
leader of
Okay.
the Black Ones summons this tidal
Mm,
wave of nature to chase
fair
them
enough.
away.
Okay, there's some magic
Yeah,
right there.
Snaking after them over the undulations of the hills. I think.
that's right.
That would be a lack of effort on my part, I have to admit, because by then I probably checked out of the story. Yeah, that is poor reading on my part. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Mm,
hard to pay attention if you're not enjoying something.
mm.
God knows, it took me 3 tries to finish They.
That's fair. And Robert didn't even want to try reading The Long Walk.
Well,
That's right, that's
I've
right. He
read that
cheated.
before. You see, I'd read it before. I didn't want to read it again.
Yeah, you didn't want to put yourself through the torture.
I've read it twice for that podcast. I just want everyone to remember,
Okay.
yeah,
We
viewers.
salute we salute your sacrifice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm really mad about 2 things. Number
What?
one, I wish Zaporavo would actually survive. I wish that Conan and Zaporavo would have this whole, oh, they are
Showdown?
reluctant. No, no, they are yeah, showdown, but then they're reluctant allies, kind of a thing,
Oh, okay.
right? So I wanted that aspect from the story, and it was really disappointing to me that that never happened. And the second thing was, um, I hoped that they were gonna steal some of those statuettes and do something with them, but they were just introduced as this really cool thing that the Black Giants did, but then you know it, it wasn't really explored upon more. So to me, Howard introduces a lot of things and doesn't dwell on them. But if something
Mm.
is key part of the story, he usually unlocks it for you in the end and lets you know what was going on, right? And for the most part, I don't think that's very much needed in this story because you're kind of given enough details to make up your own backstory for the Black Ones.
Mm.
When it comes to, oh, okay, so they've been here for a long time. There's some prehistoric things that they have as statuettes. They've been collecting them for the most amount of time, for maybe time immemorial. Maybe they are collectors. Maybe they are creatures that collect memories and information about flora and fauna. Makes sense, right? You don't need that much more. But the statuettes themselves, I hope that more would have been done with them, except for just seeing them on you know, on the shelf. Those are the 2 things that I wished that were explored on more. Was there anything for you, Robert, that you wished was given more time?
No, I can't say there was. I was too pleased at finding that I actually thought this was one of the better Conan stories, whereas previously I'd thought it was one of the poorer ones. So maybe I had early in my life I had a sort of XJ spell on me, and
Hmm.
now I've kind of broken free.
You
From,
read the story the wrong way, Rob.
that's right. That's right. And now exactly. I'm really pleased that you understand this concept.
I'm just gonna mute myself because I require to puke. I'm just gonna mute. All right, all right. Cool.
Exactly.
I've recovered. It's this what I've just seen here. Brown nosing of the highest order. Absolutely.
What brown
disgusting.
nosing, bro?
Oh.
I was making fun of Robert.
No,
And you, and you, Nikki, both of you together.
Well-
This clash you have between the two of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you actually had a side to stand on, like any other normal human being.
Bro, I don't do size, man. I'm a rationalist.
That's right.
Remember?
That's why I'm criticizing here. That's exactly. You figured it out. Very well done.
So to sum up, most of my life I read this story wrong, but now I have rison above that youthful defect.
Oh, that must so
I hope
hurt
that you rise above the youthful, the more elderly, I suppose, defect of considering something being wrongly read. But we'll carry on. Let's not talk about this week. Huh? I don't have the strength in me, gentlemen. So one aspect that I really enjoy about the story is the fact that it's so open-ended that Conan becomes this pirate, and he gets to travel on the ship with these pirates and this girl, Sancha. And that's so inspiring. That's so interesting. If I can locate it somehow, it will probably be in Russian, so I'll have to rewrite it for your pleasure. But I have a short story somewhere, my first fan fiction, should we say, where Conan is the captain of this pirate ship.
Wasn't that the camp pastiche?
Yeah, well, I found out about that this week because I was researching.
So
and,
was that bad that you wanted to blot it out of your mind, or what? Maybe.
I have never read.
Oh, you haven't
Conan
read
the
it.
Buccaneer. No.
Oh, you said that the reviews of the story was bad. Okay.
Yeah, I've never read it. But yeah. So young Nikita wrote a continuation to this story. And if it was anything like the clock story, it's not too bad. Yeah, it's fascinating how things are. But yeah, it was really inspiring to me as a kid to the ending of the story, because most of Conan's endings are ambiguous continuations. Where here, Howard literally gives you the torch and says, "And now it's off to sea. What's gonna happen next?" Right. I really wish he did a continuation and it wasn't the camp or me.
Hey, that could be your short story challenge.
Well, rewriting the.
Not rewriting, but writing a part 2. How it really should have been. Then please ignore the pastiche.
I see. Yeah, if I can remember roughly, if that is of any interest to either of you, the stories that I had with the pirates included them finding a ghost ship, like a ship in the middle of the sea.
That actually sounds quite cool. Go for it, man. Do it.
Maybe I will.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. Yeah. So there you go. That's my overall thoughts. Because I don't have much else to say about the story, if I'm honest. Is I really enjoyed the tale. I think it, as far as give me my paycheck, Conan's, right? It's a pretty good one. I struggle to find things that are wrong with it that aren't about things being unexplored in some ways. And to me, if I'm talking about, oh yeah, I enjoyed this, but I wish there was more of A, B, and C, I think then in some way the story has actually succeeded in getting me invested because I'm wishing for more. So with that said, I can't place it any higher than Rogues in the House or anything along those lines. So I guess I will give it a 6.5 out of 10.
I'd place it higher than Rogues in a House, actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
I do have a special. You have to remember, Rogues in the House has a very unique connection with me, because of how exciting it was for me to have Conan in that format, right? It was the first story for me where he was in this big city and things are going on with him, and he's gonna kind of survive and understand what was going on. So
right.
you know, it holds a special place for me. So
Well, I'd give it maybe I don't know, 8.5, something
8.5.
like that. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Why half and not 9?
Because I don't want to build up a reputation for being too prodigal.
I'm afraid that is a little bit too late, Rob.
Yeah, the ship has sailed. The station is already clear. There's no one else here but you, standing with your umbrella. You know.
Right.
Mr. 10 out of 10. All right. Robert. All right. Yeah. Actually, what about you? You know, how low are you going? Is this 3? Is this 2? Is this
1.
1 out of 10?
Yeah, I would have.
I think that's very undeserved.
No, it's so normally I wouldn't have picked it up if I had known what it was going to be like. It's just not my cup of thing at all. Yeah. Would not read again, would not recommend, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's a paycheck, Conan. And, you know, as a practicing artist, I did have to sometimes push through things that I'm not proud of just to pad the thing. So I understand. But if it's in a body of works, I would just be like, okay, I have nothing against Robert E. Howard publishing this or getting a paycheck out of it, but it's not something that I would read, basically, if I had known that it was going to be that way. Or let me rephrase this. If I had read this as my very first Robert E. Howard story, I would not pick up another Robert E. Howard again. And I have done that to some authors, which might be unfair. I read the first couple of books by this Australian author once, and then I was like, man, the language, the prose in this is just terrible. I'm not picking her up again. Basically, that was it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Well, dear viewers, the Pool of the Black One is very easily found on the internet. In fact, there are really good audiobooks on YouTube that maybe we'll link in the description that you can listen to if you don't want to read, if you're lazy. I will admit, I've read the story 2 weeks ago or something, and then when it came to working on the podcast, I also listened to the audiobook, and it's pretty good. And yeah, you know, let us know what you thought about the tale, and if you agree with XJ, who thinks this is basically, you know, a crime against humanity, or if you agree
No,
with
it's worse. It's
worse.
Yeah, it's something so forgettable you can treat it indifferently. It just doesn't matter at all.
Irregardless, if you agree with XJ's wrong point of view, or if you think more like Robert, who is this time right.
Yes.
That's my unbiased opinion on this here situation.
Right, unbiased. Sure. Okay. Well, all right. If you guys enjoyed the podcast and all that, please like and subscribe and support us, help us grow the channel and all that stuff. I was going to say a bad word and then we would have gotten ourselves off YouTube.
Oh, good. All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching and for listening. And till next week.
Have a good one.